Our next guest, the Charles H. Wright Museum, they have been paying tribute to the African American community for years. How long have you guys actually been open? It's over 100 years now, hasn't it?
Yeah, this is actually our 55th year celebrating. Yeah, 1965 is when we began. So,
where did I get 100?
Oh, no, but it's fine. We'll take it. You're forecasting some very good things for us in the future.
There you go. We'll be together and celebrate the 100th celebration. But I've been in the museum. It is awe-inspiring to go into the Charles H. Wright Museum for those that maybe have not taken the time to visit the museum. But can we start off first with Black History Month? What events do you guys have going on right now?
Oh, we're excited about Black History Month. As many people will know that because of the pandemic, we've gone virtual with a lot of the events and activities that we've had to put on. We do still have a variety of different in-person type of events that we invite people to come out and participate in. And some of them really center around our exhibits. So, on Wednesdays, for example, we have the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. So, and again, virtually online. So they have to go to thewright.org and they'll see a full list of all of our, events and activities. And so, the virtual storytelling on Wednesdays, and then on Thursdays in person, if you come to the museum, Thursday afternoon at 1 o'clock, every Thursday during Black History Month, we have what's called Excellence in Black Cinema. And these are just a variety of different movies that either starred famous African Americans or were produced or directed by African Americans. So we invite the public to come down to the museum on Thursday afternoon around 1 o'clock and participate then. On Fridays, we virtually have what's called a Youth Speak virtual stage. So for young people, they have the opportunity to express their perspective on history and on science and justice and equality, which is really kind of fun, given that, so long we've had young people who are being taught at, right? They go 6-7 hours a day, sit in front of a screen with a teacher talking at them. And this turns the camera on them and allows them to be able to kind of express themselves with things that they are feeling about history and equality and justice. Saturdays at 11 o'clock in the morning, they can make their own comics. So we have a workshop on how to make your own comic. And they can do either one individual or, a series. But it's a fun workshop for young people. So those are some of the very basic things that are happening during Black History Month that we like to be able to tell people that they can participate in virtually and in person.
Edward Foxworth III with us here on the MegaCast. He's the Director of External Affairs for the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. When you're talking with the kids, what are you hearing from them right now? Because they're in the middle of a pandemic, but we also just went through a crazy election and a summer of unrest in our country. How are they taking all of this?
They're stressed. They're dealing with a lot of duress. And as I mentioned, they 6-7 hours a day sitting in front of a screen 5 days a week. It has been very stressful, not being able to go outside. And then when they do, they have limited kind of room or ability to be able to interact with people. But then they see that their parents are, in fact, dealing with the stress of, yes, that election, there was an eviction moratorium, high unemployment. There were all kinds of issues that were affecting their household. And so for them, yes, when it gets to equality and justice, they're really kind of thrown off. They also were bothered by the daylight killing of George Floyd and the protests that came thereafter. So they're seeing this firsthand. They're not being told it. It's on their TV screen, it's on the news, it's in the papers, and you just can't avoid having to deal with it. And so they're asking a lot of good questions. Why? Why is this happening? What do we do about it? I'm frustrated, I'm mad. And so we're having to try to be social workers and historians all at the same time.
And they have the ability to get information so much more readily than we did when we were kids. We went to the library, had to look things up. You knew the Dewey Decimal System. Now they just open it up on their phones, but it can also give them the historical context as to what's going on and what they're seeing today as well. But you wonder, does that raise their hope or not? Because sometimes it feels like as a nation, we haven't made too much advancement in the area of racial, the racial area within our country.
Yeah, I know I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that the stress that they're experiencing and the vivid images that they're seeing, and Ronnie, I won't sign up with you publicly on the Dewey Decimal System. I'm just not going to age myself with that, though I'm very familiar. That's a great reference that you made there. But no, we certainly do have, some work to do in this nation, that we have the division, and the last presidency didn't help that in a lot of ways. The insurrection on the Capitol didn't help that in a lot of ways. We really have some more work to do, and I would venture to say that we might have taken a couple of steps backward as opposed to moving forward. And so what you're seeing now in corporations is the pop-up of diversity, equity, and inclusion officers in their effort to try to come on board. You're seeing more and more conversations that are hopefully happening through symposiums and conferences and workshops, though they are virtual, they are happening. But yes, you're right. Young people do have access to media just as easy as we do. They can't, scroll through their cell phones without coming across something that's related to diversity, inclusion, or racial equity.
Our history has so many dark spots, but it also has a lot of high spots. And for the kids to grow up here in Metro Detroit and within the Detroit area to go to the museum, and they get that opportunity to see how big of an impact Detroiters played in the role of our history, not just here as our city and our state, but in the country as well.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And our And Still We Rise exhibit is our permanent exhibit that goes from 1500 BC all the way through to present day. And they get a chance to kind of see the journey that African and African American people have had to experience in this country. All the way through, from the very beginning when slave owners went over to Africa with boats and then, brought back Africans as cargo, treated less than an animal, but then moving all the way through the entire, again, journey of being traded and, sold at an auction block, placed on plantations and made to work. And that history is very vivid in our And Still We Rise exhibit. And it showcases also, and why we call it And Still We Rise, because, you saw the colored troops fighting the Civil War in this exhibit. You then got a chance to see how Ford Motor Company offered $5 a day for employees and the Great Migration and how that happened, all the way through to Black Bottom, which we are all familiar with in Detroit, and its history. The thing that they'll see in And Still We Rise is that every time that African Americans made a lunge ahead in race relations or even for themselves, there was always something that would knock them back down. So you had lynchings, you had Jim Crow laws, you had a variety of different things. And again, they get a chance to see that in And Still We Rise. But we have a couple of other exhibits that we invite them to see that's around. We have a new one that's going to be leaving us beginning of May called Voting Matters. And as you mentioned, with the recent election, it's important for them to understand why voting does matter. They get a chance to hear about women's suffrage movement and gerrymandering, post-Reconstruction. They get a chance to hear about the poll testing that, so many people, when it was time to vote, they were told they had to count the number of bubbles on a bar of soap in order to be able to have the right to vote. Or either, they were, presented with a random jar of jelly beans. Tell us how many jelly beans are in here. If you can't, then you can't vote. So there is some very real history that we invite people to come down and learn more about.
I was lucky enough when I worked for ATF, I had to do the recruiting, although I never quite figured that one out as a media person, how I got stuck with that job because I wasn't an agent, but I was their diversity and inclusion officer. And one of the things I was able to bring in one of the Tuskegee Airmen to actually come in and speak to the office, and such a gift to have the museum here in our backyard. So many of us don't even realize that we have the museum here in Detroit, but to hear these first-hand accounts of the experience that the airmen went through and the racism.
Yeah.
I mean, this, Lieutenant was a POW, and he was like, I was treated better as a POW than I was when I came back. He went on to be a principal in the school or city of Detroit. But when we hear those stories, how important is it for the kids to hear them directly from people who lived it?
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head, and I don't know if you know, but those that are watching your show would be happy to know now that the Tuskegee Airmen National Museum is now located in the Charles H. Wright Museum. And we have individuals here all the time. There are only a couple of living Tuskegee Airmen, and we had one here on Thursday, actually, who came in, and they pop in all the time. So they're going to be here inside the museum for the next 10 years or in the foreseeable future, where individuals, when they come in and pay for their admission, they can actually go and visit the Tuskegee Airmen National Museum. But yeah, imagine that, being able to hear a firsthand account from an actual Tuskegee Airman about what they experienced, what it was like, and to hear some words of wisdom, not from a history book or a video, but to have a real live person who went through these kinds of challenges is really, really special.
Well, it gives you an appreciation for everything that we have, but it also reminds you we have a lot of work yet to do. Edward Foxworth with us here. He's the Director of External Affairs for the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. And with that, Edward, just another minute or two with you on the show. How can people visit the museum? I know things are limited right now. Do they need an appointment?
Yes, great question. Thank you. They do need an appointment, and so we encourage everyone to go to the Wright.org. That's THEWRIGHT.org, and they'll see all of the virtual events that we have going on. All of them are free of charge right now. They'll be able to then schedule a date and time that they want to come into the museum. It is timed admission because we've got to have the social distancing and capacity rules and protocols are all in place. So we certainly are making sure that this is a safe environment. We've got sanitation stations all around. They do have to come wearing a mask of their own, and if they need one, simply ask and we'll provide them with them. So we're abiding by all of the safety protocols related to COVID. But if they go to the Wright.org, they're going to find out any and everything that they need to know. And then worst case, send us an email. I'm the guy who's going to answer it and make sure that they get a response.
Hey, before we let you go, how's fundraising right now for
Fundraising is a little slow, as you know, that individuals and corporations alike have all been hit pretty hard. That's a great question. We're always in need of support, and we've had to furlough, more than a dozen of our employees. We could use any donations, charitable donations to the museum. And again, that's on the Wright.org. If they just click the Give tab, then they can certainly make a tax-deductible donation to the museum.
And this is Black History Month. If we all give up one coffee, one visit to Starbucks, everyone in Metro Detroit does that. That could be a lot of extra money for your organization and the important work that all of you are doing. Thank you again for your dedication to the history, but also to our community and sharing these stories and keeping the stories alive.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. We appreciate it.